Chapter 82 Nightly Conversation Between Husband and Wife. Fan Jian frowned and put the bowl of fruit pulp in his hands down, seemingly disliking that the warm bowl was a bit hot. I'm not excusing Lu, it's just that at that time, the people she looked for were ostensibly following her orders, but in reality, they were following the orders of that person in the palace. Lu was merely a scapegoat in this matter. Fan Xian frowned and asked, "Who in the palace wanted me dead? Why do they want me to die? Could it be that they already knew that I was the son of the Yi family head?" Of course they didn't know. Fan Jian became unusually agitated for some unknown reason, his right hand gripping the chair handle tightly. No one who knows about this would want to hurt you, and if someone did want to hurt you, it would definitely not be for this reason. Could it be that no one in the entire Kyoto has ever known about the relationship between father and mother? If those people knew of father's relationship with the Yi family, why did no one ever suspect that I, an illegitimate child, was the son of the head of the Yi family? Fan Xian pondered this question with suspicion, and with a slight chill in his heart, he realized that there seemed to be some more important questions after the matter, but he didn't dare to open his mouth to ask them at all, and turned to say quietly, "And for what reason? For years ago, I was but a 12-year-old boy, far away in Tanyu, and seemingly uninvolved with anything in Kyoto. For years ago, that's when His Majesty accepted the Lin family girl as his righteous daughter. That's when he appointed a marriage for the county princess. His Majesty decided at that time that in the future, the royal merchant industry, in the future, will be managed by you. That's the time when you first appeared in the conversations of all the people in the imperial palace, seeing a 12-year-old child, but possessing a golden dollar that he couldn't hold up. Think about it, how those noblemen inside the imperial palace, how would those nobles inside the palace choose to kill me cleanly? The supervisory yuan has been investigating for 4 years and has basically gotten to the bottom of this matter. It's just a pity that there's no evidence to help those people." Fan Xian smiled. "Even if there is evidence, I'm afraid that I can't help the other side. After all, the supervisory court is the vassal, but those people are the masters." Fan Jian nodded. "Who are the people who want to kill me?" "The Empress, the Rapunzel." Fan Jian smiled. "But since you've grown up safely and have entered the capital, I believe that even if they were given a few more guts, they wouldn't be able to risk His Majesty's wrath and make a move against you." Fan Xian said sadly, "You are too optimistic. Even if I were to be killed, would the Emperor still do anything to his wife and sister?" Fan Jian didn't answer, and turned to say, "In the recent period of time, Prince Jing will definitely try to find a way to draw closer to you, and he will definitely try to find a way for you to meet with the second prince, so you should handle this carefully on your own." Fan Xian responded, knowing that every major clan in Kyoto must either actively or passively take a stand in this matter, and that although a royal son vying for the right to inherit the world is a trick that seems a bit old-fashioned, it's always the same play. No matter whether it's in that world or this one, as soon as that thick curtain is pulled back, the playwrights hiding behind it will come on stage one after another, or make use of a 3-foot sword, or use a 3-inch tongue, and acting for others to see, but also for themselves. Fan House seems to have to put in a great deal of effort if it wants to be impartial and follow the emperor closely. Late at night, Fan Jian sat alone in his eunuch's chair, drinking fruit syrup that had cooled down while thinking about what Fan Xian had just said. Thinking of the terrible price he had paid in the beginning, the corners of his lips twitched, and he remembered the horrific and bloody scenes in that bleeding month in Kyoto. On that bleak night that no one knew about, the Empress's father trembled under his own blade, and as he personally beheaded the other man with a single stroke of his own hand, the skull rolling on its bones, seemingly remembering that voice, a gentle smile appeared at the corners of Fan Jian's lips. After a period of time, Fan Xian lived a very comfortable, every day in the house to enjoy the treatment of the young master, occasionally slipped to Dongchuan Road to see the planning of the bookstore to what point, and that also surnamed Ye's shopkeeper is gradually familiar with, should be smooth, so the house Qing guest Mr. Cui or returned to the side of the Sananbo. And every other night, Fan Xian will always sneak to that royal courtyard, familiar with the way to climb over the wall and enter, only now the window is no longer closed, the chicken-leg girl always silently waiting for him. The reason why I often run there, not because of love affair, Really, Lin Wanner's disease cannot be delayed. The royal people are all wood. Good thing in the imperial doctor in the receipt of the Senanfu do not know how many ways to turn over the bribe. And finally spoke to recognize that a little bit of wellfishy for the body is good for the county princess. Fan Xian often go there, is to send food, as well as their own prescription pills, because of the fear of conflict with the imperial doctor prescribed medication, so the medicine are extremely mild. In addition, is to bring a lot of good food, to meet the fiancé a day craving over the day of the small mouth. Just like this, after some days, Lin Wanner's body has obviously improved, the face of the red gradually more, but not before that kind of unhealthy red, and the body's meat is also more up, the cheeks at the obvious round a circle. Lin Wanner has some headaches in this, but Fan Xian is incomparable surprise, thinking that after marriage, he cannot every day need his favorite baby fat beautiful girl. The guards in the courtyard are really a bit lax, coupled with Fan Xian's wall-climbing kung fu that he was trained by 5 bamboos in Tanyu State, so he steals incense and feeds her medicine night after night, and no one even notices. However, the root of Lin Wanner's illness still can't be eradicated. Fan Xian thought that it was better to wait for Fei Ti to come back and then say, really can't, after the marriage to find a way to move out of Kyoto. The Fan family in Sanshan Mountain there is also a special courtyard, the most suitable for convalescence. After these nights of contact, this pair of unmarried couples have long been familiar with each other. I do not know why. From the Qing temple after love at first sight, the two people will feel that the other side and their own some extremely similar places. Maybe it is the appearance, maybe it is the body of the temperament, maybe it is the treatment of things and the view of the feeling of this kind of pitch, so that the first love of Fan Xian, the first love of the Wanner really feel the wonderful of the hand of his son, by two originally strange men and women, and to now a glance and a finger can know what each other think, actually did not spend much time. Lin Wanner looked at his face, worry suddenly rose and asked, you use that incense every day to make Siki fall asleep, after a long time, there won't be any problems, right? Fan Xian comforted, I told you the first time I came, this incense is only good for one's body. Lin Wanner thought of the first day he touched in the window and couldn't help but giggle, saying, what would you have done if you were really killed as a flower picker at that time? Fan Xian smiled bitterly and held her hand, Yi Chen, perhaps there are some things you must know. Hearing him call out her nickname, Lin Wanner was slightly shy and said, what things? Well, if you want to kill me, it's probably very difficult. Fan Xian smiled and said, I've been studying under very powerful people since I was young, so my bones aren't any kind of literati who writes poetry, but more like a reckless man. Lin Wanner sighed, I know, if he wasn't a reckless man, how could he beat up Guo Shangshu's son on the street and made such a big fuss that he couldn't leave the capital until now? Speaking of which, Fan Xian hit Guo Baokuan's case has not been closed, the two sides of the wrestling no less. The Kyoto government has long hung a white flag, held up the sign of immunity, will be handed over to the Ministry of Criminal Justice, with the name of, the case is complex, difficult to investigate and decide. In fact, this case has what complex, if really want to investigate, as long as the follow fan idol in Kyoto Street a few guards a catch, and then a torture, what all understand, but the problem is the lawsuit of the two background is not simple, so the case is naturally complex up. This is the crooked way, but is the official right way after the case handed to the Ministry of Justice, so it is the Ministry of Justice began to headache, is currently planning to ask the palace decree, let the supervisory yuan to handle the case. Although this kind of security cases should not be the management of the supervisory yuan, but after all, both sides of the officials, and the supervisory yuan has the duty to supervise the officials, so it makes sense Kyoto, 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 and Kyoto. So it makes sense all the 100 officials in Kyoto know that the president of the procuratorate is a person that no official or noble relative would ever put in their eyes. So the Guo family is waiting for the day when the supervisory yuan begins its investigation, not realizing that Fan Xian is also waiting for that day, and he's holding the card Fei Jia left for him, so he won't be afraid of the supervisory yuan's night fork. In the quiet night, Fan Xian was slightly out of his mind, and then comforted Lin Wanner, It doesn't matter, it will naturally fade after a few days. He suddenly thought of the mother of the young girl in front of him, who had once tried to kill herself 4 years ago, and the tip of his eyebrows could not help but wrinkle. Lin Warner was an ice-cold girl, and seeing his expression, she asked, "Is there something troubling you lately?" Fan Xian looked at the girl's picturesque brows and sighed as he asked, "If there are any problems between me and the eldest princess in the future, I'm worried about how you'll handle yourself. I'm just afraid that you'll be very sad." Lin Warner smiled. "Why think ahead about things that haven't happened yet? One heir has been sick since she was a child, and seems to be counting the days until she passes, never knowing which day she will leave this earthly world, so I've always disliked thinking about horrible things that haven't happened." Fan Xian sighed, full of pity, and took her into his arms, sniffing the lingering scent of her hair as he kept saying in his heart, "I know how you feel, because I once had the same thing as you." Kissing June's lips and leaves, the teeth have a residual fragrance. Well, one heir, your body is so soft. You are touching the pillow you brought yourself the other day. Fan Xian loved the feeling of sneaking into a woman's boudoir at night. It was like cheating, yet it was a kind of cheating without the psychological burden. If permitted, he would like to have such days for a longer period of time, at least until he was married, without too many things bothering him, and to be able to have such a happy life in Kyoto was in any case something that he could not have imagined before he left Tanyuzu. Nay, as the saying goes, things don't turn out the way one wants them to, and there is always a day when a peaceful life comes to an end. In the afternoon of this day, Prince Jing set up his carriage and came to the Fan mansion, and Lu hurriedly went forward to greet him respectfully, welcoming him into the flower hall for tea.